Greetings and welcome. I'm Aaron, and this is the first devlog that I want to do where I kind of want to show you what I'm working on. And the goal with this is to actually kind of dive into things that I don't make tutorials on, and you don't see a lot of coverage about because they really get into the nitty-gritty of things. When you're making a game, there's a lot of things that happen that you work on that no one cares about, no one ever sees, and sometimes it's good to show those off. Sometimes people have those questions or they want to see what it actually takes to make a full game. So I am in the very, very early stages of my game, but I am making progress and I'm starting to make decisions now that are going to affect the rest of the game. Sometimes these decisions might be things that you've had to make in a game that you're working on. And I just wanted to share it. I wanted to show it off. So this will be the first in hopefully for the next 2-3 years is the timeline that I've got going right now. But here's what I've got so far. If you watched the 2.5D platformer video, what you know is that that's kind of the base that I'm working on. So my game is a 2.5D platformer, and so that means that I can actually jump. Don't worry about the animations, everything's fairly crude right now, but you can actually do things like push and pull and move around and jump and move up and fall behind and actually be able to interact in a way that I don't see a lot of games doing. So I put out a whole video on how to actually create this and how to use it. It's totally free if you want to grab it. But what I've been working on is actually action. So my game's gonna have some really fun combat, which is the goal, I guess, always. But it's gonna be kind of an action combat. So right now, I've got this guy, this goblin, who sees me, charges, I can fight, assuming I can actually use a sword, and he's got different move sets, and I can move and roll, and I can do all these different things, and for the most part, it's actually working pretty well. So the specific thing that I'm working on right now is how to have these two objects actually interact. And there are several different methods. Right now, I have a fairly thorough and very good state machine. So inside of here, we've got my player, and here I have the states. So my states are actually controlled and they're created inside of a struct called state, where I define it all here, and this is all the default data for this state. Then in the create event of every object, I actually go through and I define what that function is supposed to do. So when I first move into my idle state, it runs this code. When I am in the main loop, so everything I want it to be happening, kind of like the main step event, this is what's going on. For every time I could switch to another state, all the code is here. I can specifically draw things in just the state I'm in, including drawing for the GUI or the GUI. And I've made all of my different states here. So there's a lot of code. If we look at this, I've got idle, walking, I've got all my jumping, I can move boxes around, I can attack, block, dodge, and get hurt, and control my inventory, which is also its own struct. Now, all of that being said, how it actually works is just right here, which is fantastic. So I have my state that runs the main loop, and then I have my state, which checks if I'm supposed to change. And everything else kind of runs in different spots. So I've got drawing from my state right here. Everything is dependent upon this variable right here. And currently, well, I guess as of today, it's changed. But up until today, these objects, my player, my enemy, they were all completely separate logically. They didn't share any code. They didn't actually affect or change each other at all. But what I found is that actually makes things pretty difficult, specifically right now, because I'm working on it inside of the combat. So when I'm doing combat, they are attacking each other. And currently, well, before, it was working okay. You can see I have damage. He actually attacks me. I don't have a health bar, but he does. So if I attack him, it actually does something. And up until today, what I was doing was I actually had the check, which I think I could find that code inside of here. Yeah. So this was the actual function that I was using right here. So this would actually check whichever enemy is the one next to me, the one doing the attack. And then I would do a custom collision check with the rectangle function. And then if it was, I would set my own variable called damaged. And then I would handle what happens when I was damaged. And so you can imagine inside of the player, if I'm idle, then what would happen is in the state, I would have something like if damaged is equal to true, or the way I type it is just if damaged, because if it's not, doesn't hold a value, then it's false. So if damaged, then I would change my state. And this worked for a little while. But what I found was or the player, had to check everywhere that I would actually take damage. I had to specifically go inside of my player object and inside of the orc, and I would have to check to see if I was hit. Now, that can work, but I plan on having a lot of different enemies inside of here. A lot of different things that you can fight, interact with, and do stuff. And the wall I was coming up against was, wow, that is a lot of checks that are redundant. They're slightly different, so I can't just create one function and call it good. I have to actually put it all over the place. And that was just a tremendous amount of work. So this state machine right now is what we call decoupled. It is completely independent from another. All of the code that was in my player worked whether there was an enemy or wasn't an enemy. No problem whatsoever. And it still works right now whether there is an enemy or there isn't an enemy, but the change that I've made is now it is not a completely coupled, it's kind of like a mix. And this is the decision that I'm working on. And if you have been working on a game with a larger state machine, maybe this is something you've encountered. So I would love your feedback here as well, because I am making this game for the first time and there's a lot I'm going to learn. So I have this new variable and it's called hit by. And I'm saying I for the player. The player does not set this to anything other than undefined. And what happens is I have currently this right here inside of my main step event. So outside of the actual state itself, inside of the step event, I'm checking to see if it's ever not undefined. Because if it doesn't equal undefined, it means that something else has set it. And what it's doing is it is currently setting it to itself if it detects an attack. So if I come down here to this lovely thing called attack something, what this is doing is actually in the orc, it is doing an attack. So it figures out when and where and how, and then it does the attack. And it's going in and it's checking everything around it, and it's making sure that I don't hit more than one time. And this is the real reason that I had to come up with this way for them to communicate, because otherwise what it would be doing would have the player checking the enemy to see if I had been attacked by that same enemy in the same attack. Because I don't want one attack to do multiple points of damage. Same for me and the enemy. Right? If I swing my sword at the orc, I want it to do 1 point of damage to every orc that it hits, not 1 point of damage for every frame it's colliding. And so what this is doing is it checks everything around it, and then enemies attacked is a array that just holds the enemies that have been attacked in this specific attack. And so I needed this to be able to actually function in its own object, and the orc and the player, they are both using this. And before I had them starting to talk to each other by actually setting this variable called hit by, This would have just required so much code in both places. And yeah, I have an enemy parent, and so it's not like I am creating a check for every single enemy that I'm doing, but at the same time, it would have to be checking to see every specific enemy if I've been hit by that specific enemy over more than one time. So basically taking all of the fighting logic for every enemy, every attack that could ever be done, and putting it inside of the player, which to me seemed like way more work than it should. Like, I love this state machine that I've got. It is extremely easy to alter and debug and make work the way I want, because if I'm doing something when I'm jumping, I know where to go. If something doesn't work when I attack, I know exactly where to go and how to fix it. Like, it makes debugging so simple. But I did not want to have, but it also is a lot of retyping. Because when I'm checking something, like for the changing of the states specifically, sometimes there's a lot. So this one's pretty easy because I'm finishing an attack. But if I'm walking, there's a lot of ways to change my states. So I can go from walking to idle, to in air, to pulling on something, to attacking, to defending, to using a menu, to all of these different things that could be happening. And I have to do this over and over because walking is very similar to idle. And I can do all those things from idle at the same time. And so there's already a good bit of, not duplicate, because it is slightly different and I can't just copy and paste it, but there's a lot of retyping of very similar code. And I did not want to have to do that for the enemies, because it would just be so much more. It would probably work, but at the same time, it makes way more sense for the enemy, right? In this case, the orc enemy, this guy. It makes way more sense for this guy to tell everyone else that, hey, I hit you, and then you handle that. Because that allows me to basically come in and say, hey, yeah, you hit me, but I'm blocking, and so I'm fine. Or, yeah, you hit me, but I'm actually dodging. And if I'm dodging, I'm not going to do anything. So I'm just going to set it equal to undefined, and I'm done. I'm fine, because I'm in the middle of a roll. I understood your collisions hit me, but I'm okay. And that allows me to do that. Now, this is the very first draft of it. I expect this to actually turn into a much more in-depth handling function. But for right now, this works. And it actually works really, really nicely. In the orc, what I did was I actually had every state handle it. And so inside of idle, if he gets hit, he checks that. And that's because this guy has a lot less states for me to worry about. Same thing in patrol. I can come in here and, hey, if I'm hit, I'm going to do something. So for me, that's super nice. And it actually has been working fantastic. I am now moving on to, let's see, having the orc being able to navigate this world so I can have combat inside of there, which is its own challenge. But what I found was, hey, I'm using state machines, and I have to actually decide whether they are going to be coupled, decoupled, or a mix in between here. So I'm going with a hybrid approach, with a mix. I don't want them to break if they're missing an enemy, but I also don't want every object to do every single check for every single thing that could happen. So other objects are doing checks and communicating that to them. And for right now, I'm finding that to actually be a really nice... Let me know what you think, though. This is, like I said, part one of a very, very long series. So if you want to actually see me make this game, I'm going to be doing live streams where I actually code. You can join in. You can help me, give ideas, maybe fix my code if I do something wrong, or come in and bring your own project, and we'll just work on games together. It'll be fun. And if you want to see how a game is made over many years, well, I have a terrible track record of actually doing that, but this is one that I'm confident. My words might come back to bite me, but hey, I'm going to commit to this. And this is something that I've been working on already for many months now. I'm enjoying it. I'm excited. And I'm going to show you things that I haven't really seen other game devs do. I'm going to talk about these things that, well, they're really nitty-gritty. They are very niche. And if that interests you, great. Leave a like. Let me know. Let's talk. If not, you're probably not here anymore, so that's okay. But that's what I've got for you. That's part one. I'm not going to say how many parts, because like I said, a couple years, but I'd love to hear from you. What kind of game are you making? What kind of specific problems have you come into that you've had to solve? I want to hear, because maybe it'll help me. Maybe this will help you. Whatever the case, keep making, keep learning. I'll talk to you later.